With a few exceptions due to rarity or value, I think we can all agree that we'd like to see Mustangs being driven. Now, occasionally you find an owner that takes being driven to a whole new level. Today's customer spotlight, we're going to check out Drew's 67 Adventure Stang. So we're here with Drew, who's the owner of this extremely unique 1967 Mustang. I guess you go by Adventure Stang on Instagram. I don't even know where to start. Tell us how you decided to do this to a 67 Mustang.
Well, in September, I broke my back and almost died. So we decided to hit the road and see as much as we could, you know?
Okay. And why a 67 Mustang? Most people are doing this, they're gonna get a Jeep or an SUV or not a 50-year-old classic car.
Who doesn't want to drive around America in an American icon?
True, true, true. So tell us about the car. I mean, how long have you had it? What modifications did you make to it? I mean, driving like that is obviously something most people watching have not done. They may want to, but they've never done it. What was the process to even do this?
Right, so we started out right when COVID hit is when I did most of the modifications. It got all new suspension, disc brakes front and rear, and then I put in a 5-speed transmission with 355 rear gears, so we have a nice cruising
nice
gear.
highway-friendly gear.
Yeah, exactly, because you don't want to be revving that up
Tacking
to the moon.
out. Not with that kind of mileage.
For sure, but yeah, I mean, just drivability stuff and you know, bringing it kind of modern with the disc brakes helps a lot for safety and.
And now it's not just you doing this too. You brought the whole family, including the dog.
Yep, so we got our 90-pound Cane Corso Great Pyrenees mix. We got our almost 2-year-old who's teething right now, so that's been fun. And my wife and I.
So let's talk about the roof rack, because everyone's gonna ask, well, how do you put a tent on the roof of a Mustang? We've seen it on Jeeps, we've seen it on, you know, other kinds of pickups and stuff, but obviously never on that. Was it built for that, or is it something you made?
So the actual roof racks are off of a Jeep Wrangler.
Okay.
So they just mount to the drip rail. So any car with a drip rail, it's kind of a universal fit.
Okay. So as long as that's something to clamp onto.
Exactly.
And then tell us about the tent.
So.
Because you didn't have that on there when you started this journey.
Yeah, so we started out with a cargo basket that had one of those waterproof bags, and we just had all our stuff in it. But hotel living was pretty expensive.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's a lot of hotels.
So we ended up finding the tent, and we got it from a off-road store. And it's actually a Smitty built, and the platform just mounts straight to those roof bars, and it unfolds, and the ladder supports the other half, and
plenty of room for the whole family.
Yeah, so my wife, myself, and our 2-year-old.
Keena has now joined us, and like you said, she goes everywhere the family goes. So what is, I mean, how many miles have you put on this car so far on this adventure, and where are you going? I mean, what's the end game?
So we started this journey 2 days before Christmas, 2020, and since then we've put 17,000 miles on the car, and we've been, Pennsylvania here is our 25th state.
Wow. So how many miles were on the car? I mean, how much testing, bye Keena, how much testing did you do on the car before you took this trip?
So it's kind of an in test. I mean, it's a 54.
Cross your fingers and go.
Yeah, it's a 54-year-old car, so you know, it's always a test.
It's not like you daily drove the car for a couple years before you did this.
I mean, we've only had the car for 2 years, so the majority of the work, like I said, happened the beginning of COVID. We did one road trip to Montana. That was about 1,500 miles.
Okay.
So
that you took a little trial run before this.
Exactly.
So we're talking a little bit off camera now. You got to tell this story. So I'd asked you, you know, what does it take to convince your wife to take off for who knows how long to tour the country with the whole family in tow in a classic car? So how did that conversation go?
So That conversation was actually the opposite.
So she wanted to go.
She's been trying to talk me into doing some crazy adventure like this ever since we first got together.
Okay, so that's not what I've expected. So she was the push, and then she convinced you that this was finally a good idea.
Yeah, she was steadily pushing me that direction, and then, you know, we had those couple wake-up calls, and it was like, all right, let's do it. But we're trying to see as much as we can, you know. The whole thing is life is too short. We grew up, you know, being told you got to get a career and a whatever and buy a house and show you're successful or whatever, but success is all measured on the inside. And we're just trying to see as much as we can and get as many experiences as we can. So after we hit the lower 48, if Canada ever opens back up.
I'd say is Alaska on the list?
Alaska's definitely on the list. And we got friends in Hawaii, so maybe ship it to Hawaii and cruise around Hawaii.
I can't imagine many cars have driven all 50, especially a 67 Mustang.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned to me before, though, that you might actually not just do this in the U.S., you might try to continue this outside of the U.S.?
Yeah, so at some point we would love to do and go into South America, go all the way through Mexico and South America and end up at like Peru or something like that. Definitely a huge goal for us is to ship it across the Atlantic Ocean and do the same thing around Europe.
That would be pretty amazing as well. So basically, this is just the start of the journey for you guys. 17,000 miles. It's the start of the journey.
Pretty much.
So what's your favorite story from the road so far? I mean, you drive that much. I mean, I've driven across country, nothing like this, but you see a lot out on the road. Obviously, you've probably seen some pretty amazing things so far.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the coolest experience we've had just recently happened. It was at Assateague Island State Park, where the wild horses are and
Maryland,
stuff.
yep.
And it was just so cool having the wild horses come right up to us and to our car, and you know, they stole our bag of marshmallows out of the trunk. And later in the day, we went up to go to sleep, and they actually came back, and they're just small enough that they fit under the tent. So they're just walking all around us while we're just sitting in the tent watching them, and it was just so cool.
So I know obviously you're in town, you're gonna hang out here for a little bit. You'll be at Carlisle,
For
which
sure,
I'm sure if anybody
yeah.
wants to see the car, you can definitely check it out at the Carlisle show. But I know a lot of people want a closer look. So do you mind, let's take the cameras and give us a tour. You know, show us what it's like to live out of a 67 Mustang.
All right, so here she is all set up. So setup usually takes 5 minutes or so. It pretty much just unfolds, and then you stick these little rods in, and that's pretty much it. We got our sleeping bag already set up in there. Lots of airflow. Pretty much once we get the tent set up, parked where we want, and pull the cooler out, and we're good to camp pretty much. Yep, so this is it inside the tent. So it's about the width of a full-size bed, but a couple feet longer. There's plenty of room for me, my wife, and Turner, our little, and we fit pretty comfortable in here.
So the first question I asked you when I saw the car when you pulled in today was I was surprised how low it was. I mean, with the whole family and the tent, and obviously the trunk's full of everything you need to go on the road for 6 months, the car seat's a lot lower than I thought. Tell us about the suspension. I mean, did you have to beef it up? Did you have to change a lot of stuff?
Yeah, so originally we had just stock style components, and the ride was pretty bumpy being loaded down. I mean, the tent doesn't add that much weight. It's only like 120 pounds. But Alden hooked us up, and we got front coilovers and rear adjustable shocks. So being able to tune the ride has just been awesome, especially with my back. You know, I can take it from race car to touring car with just a valve twist.
Pretty easily, so it makes it a lot more livable out on the road. And I said that too, I was surprised being 17-inch wheels, 5-speed. I mean, it's a nicely modified car that I'm sure handles and drives great. And it's like I said, I expected the car to be higher with what you're doing, but I mean, the car looks great too. And the stance is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I try to, you know, I kind of got the car how I wanted it, and then, you know, just went from there.
So you built the car the way you wanted the car first, and then just happened to be able to go on this trip of a lifetime.
Exactly, exactly.
I mean, Drew, I've been following you for a while. We've been chatting online. I mean, this trip you've been taking is absolutely amazing. If you haven't already, Adventure Stang on Instagram. Make sure you follow this guy and his family. I mean, what they're doing with this car, it's crazy. I mean, we've all dreamt of taking a road trip, you know, just getting in the car and going, and man, you're living the dream, and I'm sure there's a lot of us that are jealous of you, but thanks again for bringing the car by. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.